and maybe, remember a little bit about Richie Valens at the same time. And then, of course, during the 8 o'clock hour, the Friday Free-for-All. But joining us right now, one of our favorite guests on the program, commentator and analyst, also a fellow who's, I guess I'd say that he's a GOP, or he was at one time, a political strategist involved in the GOP, but now a conservative commentator and consultant, and that is Don Feder. And he has his own website, donfeder.com, where you can read Don's take on the issues of the day. Don, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be with you, as always.
Hey, thank you. So last night I had a chance to watch this debate, a little bit of it, as much of it as I could stand. And, boy, I'll tell you what, I was listening to the two of them go back and forth, Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Clinton. And I had to wonder, is all the things that these people propose even constitutional? It's the first thing that comes to mind.
Democrats never worry about things like the Constitution. That's never stood in their way.
The thing that's interesting is you sit there and listen to them, mouth these platitudes that, I'm prepared to protect and defend the Constitution. And I thought to myself, well, if you're truly prepared to do that, it'd gut your platform.
There you go. Or if one of them is elected president, I think when they take the oath of office, Chief Justice after they swear to defend and uphold the Constitution, they'll be required to arrest themselves.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So this is not a good situation, Don.
No, we are in Mark. I will tell you, conservatives are in deep, deep doo-doo. We've never, since I've been active politically, and that goes back to the early 1960s, to the Goldwater campaign, I can never think of a time when conservatives faced a worse choice than they do this year.
Yeah. Now, you've lived in the Bay State for a number of years, and so you are well familiar with the record of Mitt Romney as your governor.
I am.
All right. So if it ends up, and it looks like it's going to be a choice between McCain and Romney, I mean, we still have Super Tuesday to go. Is there anything that you can offer conservatives that might look to Romney rather than McCain? I mean, is there much of a difference?
I think when it comes to Romney versus McCain, for conservatives, Romney's the logical choice. But, Mark, it's irrelevant at this point.
Yeah.
Barring an act of God, plague, for instance, fire from heaven, John McPsycho is going to be the Republican nominee this year.
This guy's dangerous. He is.
He's very dangerous. He's going to split the party. I will go on record now predicting that a Democrat will be in the White House next year. And I'll tell you why, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans, since 1964, Republicans have won 7 of the last 10 elections. 7 of 10. That's not bad. 70%. More than 2/3. The only times Republicans have lost is when the party has been deeply divided. And I can never think of a year when the party will be or has been more deeply divided than it is this year. We lost in 1976 after Watergate, and the party was very much splintered at that point. We lost, of course, in 1992 after Bush Sr. betrayed us on taxes. Read my lips, you may recall that.
Yeah, and he ran a feckless campaign.
He didn't reach out to conservatives. So we lost the White House. Then, of course, 1996 was a joke. I mean, everybody knew that Bob Dole was the sacrificial offering, that an incumbent president wasn't going to be defeated. So Republicans have always lost. Beyond that, Dole had a reputation as the tax collector of the Democratic Party. They would run up the spending.
Yeah.
He would raise taxes. So
you know what he reminded me of is out here in the 17th Congressional District, it's solidly Democrat. And we've got a guy that's represented this area for about 13 years now, Sam Farr, and he's a lock. Every time he runs, he's an absolute lock. And the Republicans even realize that. So every couple of years, they throw up a ham sandwich as token opposition. And this is exactly what Bob Dole was in 1996, just a ham sandwich that was thrown up there.
One of Bob Dole's colleagues, a Republican senator from Ohio, whose name escapes me, once said of Bob Dole, because of his poisonous personality, this guy couldn't sell beer on a troop ship. Well, if Bob Dole couldn't sell beer on a troop ship, John McCain can't give away beer on a troop ship.
Right.
I mean, that's how bad. I mean, McCain has a reputation as a nutcase, and
right.
it's a reputation that's well deserved.
Hey, you know, I had a chance to talk to a guy the other day named Ted Sampley, who's a U.S. veteran now. He's a former Green Beret. And he has done research into John McCain's military background because, you know, Don, for the most part, most people know about John McCain is, well, he flew off the aircraft carrier Oriskany, was shot down over Vietnam, and spent 8 years in captivity, and he refused. When they told him he could go home early, he refused because they wouldn't let the rest of the POWs out, and so therefore he's a hero. And that's all anybody knows about him. No one knows that this guy graduated fifth from the bottom of his class at the Naval Academy in 1958. No one knows that in his career he lost 5 airplanes. Now, of course, I would not blame him for the airplane he lost on the Forrestal in that terrible fire. You know, he wasn't even moving when the rocket hit the plane, and I don't blame him for getting shot down over Vietnam. But the 3 airplanes that he lost when he was stateside, before he even went into active duty, training planes, planes that he took out on joyrides. He wrecked 3 airplanes. And because his father was an admiral in SINCPAC and his grandfather was a famous Navy admiral, they kept passing this guy along. Anyone else, Don, would have been drummed out of the service, and we wouldn't be hearing about this clown running for president today.
Well, you know, Mark, I'm not familiar with his record prior to the time he spent in the Hanoi Hilton, and I'll take your word for that. What concerns me more is the fact that this is a guy with a hair-trigger temper who can't seem to keep his emotions in check. I mean, it's rare for a senator to shout F you at one of his colleagues.
Right.
Or to call one of his colleagues an a-hole in public. McCain has done that.
Yes.
I mean, here's a guy who knows he's running for president. That aside, he's a United States senator. You're supposed to maintain a certain decorum, a certain dignity, and he has so little control of his emotions that he's screaming obscenities at his colleagues in public. No, that's why so few Republican senators supported McCain this year.
Right.
Most hate him. In fact, most of the people who've worked in his office over the years hate him. This is a guy who is not beloved. Gosh, you know, there's so many problems with McCain that one hardly knows where to begin. But to go back to something that I was saying earlier, Mark, the party is going to be so deeply splintered that whoever the Democrat is, despite the fact that there's massive bloodletting going on the Democratic side, whoever the Democrats nominate, he's going to be the next president.
Yeah.
I mean, look, McCain is the darling of the liberal media. He has spent the last 20 years going out of his way to, shall we say, stick it to conservatives.
Right.
There's no way the movement is going to unite behind him.
No, that's a very good point. And I would also think that, though, there is the only glimmer of hope is this here coming up on Super Tuesday, is that we see in a lot of these states, like in California, very liberal state, with a lot of liberal newspapers. In fact, every major newspaper, with the exception of the Orange County Register, is a liberal editorial position. They have all endorsed John McCain. Now, if you are a good Republican or a conservative, and you see that the liberal newspaper is telling you who the best Republican is, you might think, hang on a second, if the newspaper thinks that this Republican is a good Republican, I should be voting for the other Republican out of principle, you know.
Well, I think that's a thin reed to hang our hopes on.
Very thin.
Bear in mind the New York Times endorsed McCain prior to Florida. That didn't help Romney or anyone else in Florida. I mean, there's a rhino stampede